Welcome back to The Race. I'm Chris Stewart here in Charlottesville, Virginia, along what is now known as Heather Heyer Way. This street, named in honor of the woman who was killed during the rally last year when police say a white nationalist got into a car and drove right down this road into a group of counter-protesters. But the name of this street, the messages that now line the walls alongside it, not the only way people are keeping Heather's memory alive. We talked to her mother about how she's now fighting for the issues her daughter cared so passionately about. August 12th, 2017 brought a lot of things to Charlottesville, Virginia. Anger, hate, violence. It took so much more. Like Susan Bro's daughter, Heather Heyer, the only person killed that day.
I often liken losing a child to an amputation. It's challenging, really challenging at first. Your life is never the same, but you can survive it, you can move forward.
She started the Heather Heyer Foundation to give scholarships to people who are passionate about social change.
We're trying to support the training and education of the next generation of advocates.
How do you want Heather remembered?
As a normal person who chose to do the right thing. I really get aggravated when people want to deify her and make her into some saint-like figure who was a leader of some sort. She wasn't. She was way back in the pack. She was with her friends. Just look at Heather as an example of what can happen if one person takes a stand. Unfortunately, it took a white girl to die before white America and white world bothered to pay attention.
Now, more than a year later, when Susan sees the street named to honor her daughter, she sees qualities that could do a lot of good moving forward.
The messages are not necessarily for Heather, they're for solidarity, for resistance, for compassion, unity. There's a lot of different reasons that people write on the wall, and it's always interesting to see where they're from, what they've had to say.
Well, we still have more than a month to go until the November midterm elections, and women are already making history as a record number won House and Senate primaries. On top of that, a record number of women of color won House nominations. Corey Rangel talking to two of them about what they've accomplished so far and what they want to get done.
Women running for office this year are shattering records and breaking barriers. 234 women have won House nominations, up from the record of 167 set in 2016. In the Senate, 22 women have won their primaries, beating the record of 18 set in 2012. Republican Pearl Kim could become the first woman of color to represent the state of Pennsylvania in Congress.
Being a woman of color, I certainly share a different perspective than some of my counterparts. And so you need different perspectives in order to be able to serve everyone within the district.
As a sexual assault survivor, Kim says her traumatic experience played a part in her getting involved in politics.
With this current climate, there were a lot of factors that made me want to run. I think the Me Too movement did inspire me, but I was also frustrated with Washington and some of the rhetoric and the inaction.
Over in New Mexico, Democrat Deb Haaland is expected to become the first Native American woman in Congress.
I'm excited to have other women and women of color running, essentially beside me, and it'll be great when we cross the finish line together.
Haaland feels it's more than just being a woman that will get her elected. She hopes her ability to relate to the average American will help her win.
I've got student loans. I'm a single mom. I know what it's like to be on food stamps. I understand what the word struggle means, and so I feel like I can go to Congress and represent folks like me.
But for all of their hard work, these women know they've got one more race to win in November before they make history. For The Race, I'm Corey Rangel.
When it comes to equal pay between men and women, well, a lot of times we hear a statistic that women earn 2/3 of what men do for doing the exact same job. PolitiFact looked into this claim and found it's not totally accurate.
The most recent official stats on the wage gap come from a 2016 U.S. Census Bureau report, and it does show that women earn 80.5 cents for every dollar men earn. But the distinction here is that this refers to all jobs. It's not a comparison of men and women who are doing the same job. It also doesn't take into account factors like the time a woman may have taken away from work to raise children. PolitiFact found studies that compare apples to apples show a much smaller gap. For example, a 2013 study by the American Association of University Women found a 7-cent wage gap between men and women doing the same job right after college. So PolitiFact determined while there is definitely a wage gap when it comes to men and women doing the same work, it's much less than the 20 cents we often hear about. I'm Kumasi Aaron for The Race.
A constitutional amendment to limit gender discrimination, that was approved by Congress back in 1972, but today it still isn't law. Newsy's Alex Miller and cartoonist Nick Refuerzo show us why.
The Equal Rights Amendment would, among other things, guarantee equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Supporters say it would legally end gender discrimination issues across the board. Those in predominantly red states who haven't approved the amendment say the ERA would be harmful to conservative values. It's been 46 years since Congress approved the Equal Rights Amendment, and yet only 37 states have ratified it, meaning it's not technically law. Here's why. A constitutional amendment must be approved by 2/3 of the U.S. Senate and House. After that, 3/4 of states have 7 years to ratify it for it to officially become law. As soon as it was passed, a group of states quickly ratified the ERA, and then the momentum came to a screeching halt. The ERA effectively died after remaining states missed the extended deadline in 1982. Many states instead created their own versions of the amendment. The ratification was brought back to light in the 90s after supporters saw the 27th Amendment, which regulates congressional salaries, ratified after 203 years. Support has only grown since the Me Too movement picked up steam. So what needs to be done to get it over the finish line? Since the early 80s deadline, 2 more states, Nevada and Illinois, ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. That means supporters really just need 1 state to lock it in. If they get it, advocates will head to the Hill to get Congress to extend the deadline. If that doesn't work, Congress could pass the amendment again and have states re-ratify it.
Next on The Race, from Charlottesville, Virginia, how another act of violence, this time against the LGBTQ community 20 years ago, led to political activism and the work that's being done this election.